Right, so getting back to what we were talking about, all fueled up, trip meter set back to 0. Now we're just going to wait for the right slot. Not yet. It would be lovely if some of these effing vehicles were... This van is doing it on purpose. Right, I'm gonna do this. That wasn't nice of them at all. Very rude of them, in fact. Because I was indicating they had loads of room behind them, but they didn't move over for me. Not because they couldn't, because they wanted to just be annoying. Anyway, so yeah, PhD was a fantastic experience. It really changed me. It gave me a lot of understanding regarding what a PhD should be, and hope that science and academia were wonderful. So after that, I began my academic journey. I took on a post-PhD project called a postdoctoral project. Again, fun enough, was still funded by DSTL. This time in order to try and harness a newly discovered protein, enzyme that could couple a sugar to a protein, and my job was to try and harness it to see if it could be utilized to make a type of antibacterial vaccine. And that is what I did. My name is first author on one of the world's first demonstrations on the utilization of this technology, which is, I still kind of consider that it was a very difficult project. It had never been done before, and the fact that I'm associated with the fact that the first vaccine was made using that method, I'm proud of it. Let's just say that I'm proud of it. But of course, you can't stand still, and so I took on several more projects over the years, and I went up academically, and I went up to assistant professor, then associate professor level, over several years. So the next step after that would have been full prof level if I had stayed in academia. However, whilst I was doing all of this and working all of these very applied projects and demonstrations of proof of concept, I started to really get a feel that I wanted to do something that could help health or humankind. I didn't want to be doing basic research that would just finish in a publication and then that's it. It just wasn't interesting for me, and so I had this idea of potentially starting my own company with the knowledge that I had, and I applied through to a system called an enterprise fellowship. So this was a super cool system, and I do not know if it still exists today. If it doesn't, it should. What it allowed me to do was basically they take someone who is, entrenched within a university, and they basically say, I tell you what, we're going to pay you wages for the whole year, but then you're going to have that year working alongside business leaders so that you can go and understand whether your proposition, your company that you want, can actually go ahead. And by the time you finish this, you will have written a full business plan, a full idea, and you'll be in a much better place to know whether this is what you should be doing. And it was a transformative year. 2017, I took on this fellowship. I'm the first person in the university to have done it, and the only person, as far as I'm aware, to have done it. So again, that made me stand out against other people. I think in the UK, there were only a handful of people that were awarded these kind of fellowships. So I studied in business school, basically. This was all done in Edinburgh, so I was flying a lot to Edinburgh. Oh, what's going on here? Okay. Thank you very much, thank you. do wonder what's going on here, though. I mean, putting yourself in. What are you? Why did it send me here, I wonder? This thing brought me here, but for what reason exactly? I don't like the look of this car, so I'm going to slow down. Maybe I won't. Maybe they'll understand it. Cheers, thank you. Nice and polite. Let's be nice and polite to everyone. So, yeah, I was studying in Edinburgh at a business school. So, and my tasks were set every year by mentors. Every single month by mentors, and it was things like go and speak to this company. Go and speak to this company. It didn't matter if it was in America, Australia. I had a bursary. It was about £10,000, and I could use it to go and visit different companies. And I wasn't there to say I have this idea. I was there to say this is my background, this is who I am, but what I would like to know is what is the problem that you have and how would you like it solved. So for my case, it was what are the diseases that are most prevalent in your particular field, and what kind of vaccine would you like. I didn't turn around to them and say, oh, I have developed a vaccine. And that was, I found, one of the biggest mistakes. Is a lot of academic groups, what they do is they are so convinced in what they do is they develop vaccines without talking to industry about what the features of the vaccine should be. And, you know, I found out very quickly, you know, cost is king in the field that I was going after. So I wasn't going to be creating human vaccines. This was for animals. This was to make, to reduce the amount of antibiotics used in chickens, used in pigs, used in cattle. I wanted to tackle bacterial diseases in those animals, and I said, you know, what do people do? So I visited all sorts of companies, including independent vaccine manufacturers, and to my surprise, they were all very, very open. Some of them even told me about the mistakes that competitors had made in the field, and I never even said, please tell me what you know about my competitors. No, I didn't. I said, you know, what is it that you require? You know, and they actually said to us, no one has ever come to us with those questions in mind. They've always come to us and said, I've developed this, what can you do? And during that year, with these learnings, I applied and won a significant grant to continue development of the technology. So it was pretty, again, very exciting year. I got to meet so many interesting people. But, you know, I don't know maybe what I expected, but the beauty of going in with an approach like that was these companies were very open. So, you know, I got invited by GSK to go and speak to them. Even though they're a human vaccine company, they wanted to hear about my work, and so they invited me over to speak to them about my knowledge and what I thought about some of their stuff. It was super, you know, some of these companies have some of the best minds in the world, and so it's not a bad thing to just sit down and listen and just have a conversation to know if you're like-minded, or, you know, make your own decision. But it was a very privileged position that I found myself in, and the other thing is that the connections I made during those years stood me in good stead for the years following, because people said, oh yes, it's that scientist that came over to us, and it's that guy that, you know, had a conversation with us. So years later, when they say, oh, what are they doing these days? Oh, okay, oh, I remember him, you know, that kind of thing. So I came back and I thought, I think I do want to start my own company, and I think I do want to try this. Of course, it's a huge risk. The vast majority of university spin-outs fail, and it's a risk that I understood. But I got to a point in my career where I couldn't continue to just keep doing, basically write a grant, get the money in, do some work. 20 years later on the line, you haven't actually moved the needle very much. I couldn't do that. It's just not in me. I felt like I needed to do something else. And that's why I started my own company. And that started a completely different journey in my life. Applied for what is called an accelerator competition in 2020. Now that is basically a place where you can get mentorship, sometimes you can get office space and laboratory space to start your company and register your company, and I got exactly that. I won the competition, my network started to be opened up. It wasn't a lot of money, but it was in the middle of the pandemic, so not a lot of people were in labs anyway. But I got to kind of start to build my network, and that was really the beginning of the company and the beginning of the entire journey. And it was a very special time, very exciting time. So there were no more grants being applied for. I left my academic job in its entirety. I became a full-time founder stroke CEO of a company. I searched high and low for a chairman of the company, someone who could mentor me, someone who's been CEO before, and show me the ropes in essence. And I met that individual, and I was super blessed to have met that individual. And it's someone who has done so well in their lives that basically they don't need the money. They like people, and when they like the science and they like the people, then they join that journey. That's as simple as it is. So fast forward to today, I'm still within that company. Things are hard out there. Things are hard for everyone, trust me. In fact, things are very hard in academia. I don't know how many people are aware, but thousands of academics are losing their jobs up and down the country at the moment because universities are struggling. I think part of it is the impact of Brexit and losing all of those EU students. So remember, I used to be an academic for 20 odd years. So I used to be a lecturer on a master's course. I used to be an examiner on a master's course. And we went from 1 year having 90% of the students from the EU to the next year having none. And trying to replace their tuition fees with students from outside the EU, like very wealthy countries. And it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy at all. It's a camera. It's an active camera. It's an active camera. You've got to slow down. Looking at these speed cameras, why do those two lanes have an indicated speed and these two do not? It's a bit odd, isn't it? I'm not sure about this. Okay, so things are very hard for academics. There isn't a week that goes by than my former colleagues, and the reason I'm still in contact with a lot of my former colleagues is because my company's renting laboratory space within the university where I spun it out from. So they're not paying my wages. I'm paying them in essence actually to remain there. And the reason for that is because I spent many years putting the right equipment in place, and so now I get to utilize that equipment as a private entity. And it's been a very interesting journey. I'm not gonna lie, it's been extremely hard. First of all, COVID caused a lot of investors to just follow each other and buy messenger RNA platforms, and of course when they're not delivering, all of a sudden you're stuck with vaccine platform that doesn't look very good, and people basically just associate the word vaccine. Everything's the same thing. No, it isn't. So they think, well, if that technology failed, then your technology will also fail. We got nothing to do with messenger RNA. That's, people make bets and they lose on those bets. And the other one is the era of AI. So I'm sure everyone's aware, AI companies are just swallowing up everyone's money. And it just feels very much like a giant bubble is being created. Everyone's putting the word AI on that. On their company, even though they're not really using AI or developing AI specific for their objective. It's sad, but that's human nature, I guess. Rich people want to make more money, and so they follow each other. There aren't very many what I call smart investors that actually do their research, hire experts in the field, and really assess what you've got. I am blessed and very fortunate, I feel, that several of the investors that have invested in us over the years have never invested in veterinary vaccine companies. So it meant that the science that we put forward and the case that we put forward was strong enough for them to want to back us. And I am genuinely grateful that people have done that. But the journey has to continue because we genuinely want to make a difference in the world. We want to be the company that goes and solves a lot of these overuse of antibiotics because these animals are getting sick because the current vaccines don't work well at all. So we want to be that company that brings in and resolves that issue. But it does take money. Just to give everyone a bit of an idea, in the UK, a trial for a pig vaccine can cost well over £100,000. So it's not a cheap process. You still, someone say, "Oh my God, you raised $250,000. That's so great." Well, half of it is blown immediately in the trial. You still got scientists to pay. And I, again, very blessed that I've got some very talented people that have chosen to follow the journey with me, and that I have a wonderful supporting family. But you don't know. There's no security in the world at the moment, to be honest with you. I don't think there is anymore. So it used to be that being an academic was a lifelong career. It really isn't anymore. So there might be individuals that have just won multi-year grants, so that means they got funding secured for a few years. Good, that's them safe for a few years, but what happens at the end of that? There's not going to be a handshake and people saying thank you for what you did to us and helping to bring money in the past. It will be, well, where's the next paycheck? Where's the next one? And at some point they'll say, okay, well then leave. We don't care that you gave us all this money in the past. So I estimate that my research probably directly helped to bring about £10 million to the university that I worked in. But did that mean that I was made a professor or that I was given a great reward and I left? No such thing. In fact, they just kind of said, okay, thank you, here you go, bye. That's how they are, and that's what they want. That's how they want it to be. Yeah, it's pretty sad. Pretty sad, actually. Right, so that's an introduction into who I am. So yeah, unashamedly, I am highly educated. Yes, I have sat on the other side of the chair. Of course, I've been a PhD student, but I've also been a PhD examiner. So I know what that feels like. I've examined PhD students both in the UK and abroad to give back. I have written papers. My name is listed in over 50, 60 papers. I am also a reviewer for journals as part of your job as well as a scientist. So I've seen the system from the inside, looked within it from the outside, and there's a few things that I'd like to say about the system and the type of people that it kind of breeds, but that's for a later one. I think for today, let's just continue a journey to West London. We should be there in about 20 minutes, according to this app, which is called Waze. I don't know if anyone's ever heard it. It was suggested to me yesterday. Apparently it's better than Google Maps in some ways. Apparently even tells you about big potholes. So far it seems to have done okay. This route I do know very well, like the back of my hand. So I'm heading to West Drayton, Conservative area. I think it's part of Hillingdon, which was the council for Boris Johnson. That is not where I live, but it's where a family member of mine used to live before they passed away, and I am literally just going over to take care of their property because it's what they would have wanted me to do. Then from that I will head into central London where my company is at. So yeah, please, I'll say, understand very well that I'm not going to take abuse. In my previous channel, just to expand a little bit, I spoke about grief when a family member of mine died, a family member whose house I'm going to now. I was quite candid and quite open about things, and someone quite sick wrote to me to say that, basically said, oh, I guess scientists don't understand everything, do they, and you can't deal with your emotions, and started talking about my children and so on. I just felt that was so sick, and maybe that's made me realize that some videos have to stay private for the family, and I leave it for using YouTube as is the right word, basically a database for them to find when it's my time to pass. Then some videos will go live, I will post and share to have frank discussions. I mean, I'd like to know what people think about online trolls, and a couple of things. First of all, at the moment, YouTube is filled with garbage AI adverts for things that are fake and fraudulent, and I do not understand why the Advertising Standards Authority cannot have any reach into YouTube. YouTube should be held accountable for enabling these people to scam others. Things about an aircon that cools any room in 90 seconds, and he keeps saying that it's clearly made with AI, or military calisthenics, or Tai Chi walking, or look at this knife, and from an AI, but it's scary. There's just a multitude. It feels like 80 to 90% of adverts on YouTube are AI created. They're selling fake and fraudulent items, and I don't understand why these people are not held accountable. Now the other thing is, don't know why people are allowed to post malicious content, or I should say malicious comments, and get away with it. Because okay, I was actually in a very bad place when this comment came on this video, which made me cancel everything. And at the time, when I think back on it, I think I wish I hadn't deleted all of the materials, but I did. And it was because I was in a very vulnerable position. Psychologically I wasn't in a good place at all, and I hadn't even buried that family member, and it was up to me to do so, and it was up to me to speak of their eulogy. So I was having to go through what I consider hell on earth, the hardest thing I've had to do in my life in terms of a life objective. And this individual didn't know any of these things about me, just wrote this malicious stuff about my family member and my children. Why? Why are there people out there who hate others who are educated? I am going to give my opinion, unfiltered and from my heart. I am not going to represent anyone. I'm not going to try and, in essence, I'm not here to tell you how to live your life. This is not why I'm doing this. I'm doing this because I think in my life I've had some interesting experiences that perhaps I'd like to talk about. For posterity to have them on YouTube, for my kids to see in the future. You know, I've had an interesting question from my eldest child who said, "Dad, how did you know that you wanted to be a scientist?" Now that sounds like such a simple question, but it's profound. The answer is very lengthy. You know, and maybe I'll go into it in one of the future episodes, but okay, right now something's happening here where, okay, that van over there was not wanting to come off like we do, and I think this taxi is behaving strangely also. I actually want to take the exit. I'm not sure that this taxi wants to take the exit. From the way they're driving, my guess is that they don't want to take the exit, because otherwise they'll be going faster than this. But let's see. I'm here to be proven wrong. They're staying in this lane. There you go. I was right. I hate it when I'm right like this, because you could see that taxi driver, all he was trying to do was just beat the traffic and get away from those guys. So what I'm going to do is come off here as indicated. I'm going to slow right down because it's telling me to slow down. It's telling me to slow down for some reason. I'm going to guess there's a queue in front of me as well. That truck driver behind me just tried to overtake. They did say reduce your speed. Yeah, alright. Cheers, thank you. That Porsche just let me in. Very nice of them. Right, so we're about to enter an area of London that is under ultra low emission restrictions, meaning that vehicles of a certain age have to pay to enter. This was very controversial when it was first set up. A lot of people were saying that means that if I literally drive out of my driveway with a vehicle that's below the emissions limit, it's above the emissions limit, I'm going to have to pay £12.50, and that was exactly what happened. So a lot of people were either forced to ditch their cars, pay daily charges of £12.50 just to get the car out of their driveway, or for us, or buy a newer car. But then they catch you, don't they? It's a really interesting story. Bought a Fiat 500 a couple of years back from 2018. Found out that if you had a Fiat 500 from 2017, your road tax, annual road tax, would be £30. But by buying a Fiat 500 of 2018, you know, a newer one, with what you think is an even more economical engine, a cleaner engine, you have to pay a road tax of £200. It just kind of baffles you, because you kind of think, oh right, so all of a sudden, by buying a newer car, you are basically being punished by saying, well, you can afford to buy a newer car, therefore you can afford to pay more tax. Alright, here we are. So we're about to pass through a town called Uxbridge. As I've mentioned, it's in the London borough of Hillingdon, which is where Boris Johnson was MP. So take that what you want regarding how people here think. I'm going to stay out of politics. There's no one there. Okay, let's go. It's a 40 road. I don't know why people are doing 30 here. Absolutely no idea. Lorry, which I'm going to guess is going to have issues accelerating. Let's stay in this lane for now. Down to 30. Lorry still indicating nothing really, which I guess means he's going straight ahead. And this is when a little bit of speed just to accelerate away from that lorry as it's going round roundabouts is a good thing. You don't want to be around the lorry as it's going around roundabouts. It is a very scary place to be for a small vehicle like mine. And what I'm going to do is place myself right here. Just made it through those lights. Turning left here. So this is where I grew up. It's very different to how it used to be when I grew up here, when I was here over 30 years ago. Very different. Let's have a look here. One of the big things about driving in and around London, you do kind of need a bike that's got decent suspension travel and a bit of height, because potholes are bad, just very, very bad. Right, so here we go. Let's turn right up here. Wow, that Audi went for it a little bit too early, mate. So this is Brunel University. I have former colleagues that work here now in their biology department, fun enough. Oh look, they're having graduation day, of course. This is a very big community of undergrads. Good luck to them, good luck to their futures. And here we have Uxbridge Mortuary, where, yeah, I had a close family member stay, unfortunately. But yeah, I know this place well. I remember it. We had, even all those years ago, these were the playing fields. They got like a rugby pitch, tennis courts, really amazing facilities that people could use, the local community could use. I don't know about that now. Now it's probably like you have gated things and you can only get in if you're a member of staff or whatever. I have no idea how these work these days. It says open to all sports park. That's great. Well done, Brunel University. Well done. That's great. You know, so that's giving back to the community, which is great. Yeah, it's got a good reputation. I think it's an engineering university. I think it's what it's famous for, primarily. Although I could be wrong. Maybe I'm just thinking that because of obviously the name that it's named after. Now let's continue. In front of us is Hillingdon Hospital. Been there a few times. This brings back memories. Got hit by a car in one of those crossing points over there. Literally walking whilst holding my bike, and the car just didn't stop at the zebra crossing, just went straight through. That was fun. Car driver was absolutely like, oh, sorry, I wasn't looking. Like, well, and the thing is, the speed limit in those days was not 20, it was 30. So worst thing that happened is my bike was destroyed. My bike wheel was buckled completely. I was alright, just in shock really. So here we are. Wow, that was a bad decision. That was a very bad decision. Okay. Didn't even say sorry. This is one of the things, you know, when you're in London. People are a lot more kind of aggressive with their driving, and there's no acknowledgements at all from people. So out in the countryside where I live, if you see another motorcyclist, you'll nod, you'll wave or something. But over in London, there are so many other motorcyclists. Look at that yellow Hummer. Ooh. There's so many other motorcyclists that you don't bother. And also people are just always in a rush. And again, you get to really genuinely sense that when you're driving around. Let's just keep going down this road. These lovely England flags. So last night England lost to Argentina. Don't know what to say about that game. Just don't understand it. England seemed to go ahead and then just get scared of winning. They've done this too many times now for it to be random. There's something, you know, they used to blame Southgate for it, and now of course they're blaming Tuchel for it, but there's something about when another team with technical superiority starts to put its foot down, England players appear to just want to sink back into their goal, which doesn't help anyone really.